All right, welcome to lesson 6. This lesson will be taking our glossy painted surfaces that we've been working on for the last 5 lessons, and we're going to make them metallic. And what I mean by metallic is not alloy so much as painted metallic surfaces. So next week, or the next lesson, lesson 7, we'll get into chrome and alloys and gold and other materials. But for this lesson, we just want to try and understand the difference between a glossy painted surface and a metallic painted surface. So, and I'll provide you in the additional resources these pages. So these are work in progress pages from my rendering book. So excuse the lack of formatting. They're not done yet, but they have a lot of good information that pertains to this lesson. So feel free, you can read through all that stuff. It's basically what I'm going to talk about, but another way to get the information. Okay, so what happens is when your line of sight normally bounces into a surface, right? We now know that it bounces out, when it's a shiny surface, it bounces out at an equal angle. Well, when you look at a metallic surface, so if this is our line of sight, it bounces in, and suspended in that paint surface are all these tiny little bits of metal flake. They're actually plastic now, but they're in here, little flakes. And what happens is they're all oriented and floating in the paint. They're very, very tiny, and they're oriented at slightly different angles as they float in that base paint. And what happens is ultimately your line of sight bounces out at all different angles as it hits different mirrors. If I have a sun up here, or a light source, inevitably what happens as you look across this surface, some of your sight lines bounce. Remember, they're going all different angles. So inevitably, even when you look across a long part of a surface, okay, your line of sight bounces back inevitably on some of those mirrors back up to the light. So where this would normally just be a matte surface and the sun's coming from over here, if I look at this photograph from the right, what happens when it's metallic, so this is a matte metallic surface, there's no clear coat on top, is it takes what normally might have been a little reflection of the sun right there if it was a clear coat, okay, and then it would have been really matte. You wouldn't have seen this stretch across this much. But when you add a little metal flake to it, what it does is it stretches the reflection of the light all the way across that shoulder of the car. And what it does is it intensifies the value change. And so what happens is our brain interprets that as more form change. So that's why a lot of models, when you evaluate like clay cars and they're painted in a color, they paint them a metallic gray, for instance, like silver, as opposed to like a glossy black, because it shows the form much more clearly. If we look at this shot of this paint, we can tell it's metallic because if it was glossy, these little, let me grab a different color, these little reflections on their clear coat, okay, would just be super tight, and then it would just be what looks like a matte surface underneath. But if you look around each one of these, what it's doing is that the red paint is glowing because it has a very fine metal flake in it. And that's the influence of the metal flake, expanding that reflection of the light in the base coat. So that's what we want to try and emulate when we start to render metallic surfaces. So if I look at this one, so what I've done here is I've gathered some photographs. Let me just see if I can get a brush to put notes with, and then I will ditch the menus. There we go. So what we have on the left is metallic paint, and what we have on the right is glossy paint. Now if you look at all the wherever it's reflecting the sun, okay, so here, here, there, here, for instance, here. If you look into those areas, what you're going to see, I just put that all in one layer. All right, hang on, let me just go back out of that because I don't want to have those hide. I want to be able to turn that on and off. There we go. So what happens is it stays very, very tight, the reflection of the sun, because it's living on the clear coat. Okay, and underneath it, it's just a matte surface. So look at this blue, how that stays very, very tight. Let's actually zoom in here. So it stays very tight through here, just a matte surface. Same on the red. Same with the red here. Same with the black. This stretches a little, and that's because there are some scratches in the paint. And that's the same here. See, these are scratches, and that's called spider webbing. This look when you have the scratches from buffing and waxing the car, and then those little scratches pick up a reflection of the sun. And then same here. Now let's look over here at the metallic. Now look what happens. So when I look at this red over here, so when I look at this red, for instance, all right, compare that to this red. Now look at the difference between those two. Right here, they're both glossy. They both have reflections of the sun. Okay, all through here. Right there, right, and the radius and the fillet and the radius again. But then look at how it's glowing almost. So it's just taken and it's stretched that reflection of the sun all the way across that shoulder, and here all the way through the fillet, and then all the way through this radius again. And you'll see that it's the case on all of these. If we look at this up here, look at that, how it's stretched the reflection of the light all the way down this shoulder. So, and you can see it stopping here, right? This is the metallic, and then here it's in shadow. So there's cast shadow going over the top of this, over that section. So look at it reflect the light here, and then we get into here. No, it doesn't. Oh, we're back to just clear coat, right? So there we see a nice reflection of the building behind us, the sky, the other buildings behind the car. And then back to here, that fillet and radius, yes, nice, super, super bright. And look at how much stronger it really washes out the reflection of the environment. Right, because we know right through here is this same line would be continuing, but we can't see it. Okay, so when it comes time to decide what do I do when I render metallic, do I emphasize the strength of the clear coat more, or do I emphasize the strength of the metal flake? And almost always the strength of the metal flake is what comes through stronger. So a good way to do this is just to go in and color dodge our base matte surface and let it be stronger. And if we have a strong reflection through there, we could actually even erase it if we needed to let it be stronger. So here we have a nice example, right? The radius, the fillet, right? Then the radius again catches the light. But look at how it stretches that all the way across there, and even right through here, all the way around the bottom of this, right through there. And then radius, then back into the fillet, and back onto the radius. And then here, fillet again. Look how big that is. So it really accentuates the form. And I tend to render more things metallic, even if it's a matte metallic without a clear coat, than I do glossy. So these first 5 lessons or so has been a real challenge for me to stop myself from going in and adjusting my base layer to do this kind of effect, because you can see how much more prominent the form reads on the metallic. I mean, look at all the section changes right through here. Bump, fillet, bump, flat, bumps back out for a little wing, then back to flat again. Look at through here. Flat, but it's like, really, I know there's a strong section there, but I can hardly even see it. And it's a clear sunny day, right? But, you know, because I can see a good shadow on the ground. So I know it's a clear sunny day. I have a nice reflection of the sun, but I can barely see the form change. Right here, this is a nice shadow side, so that helps quite a bit across on that one. Look at this guy, that actually looks pretty flat as well. And if I compare this and the truck to any of these metallic examples, right, the metallic is so much stronger. So when you want to show form, making your base layer metallic is a great way to go. So that's going to be our challenge this week, or this lesson. So let's kill that one. Let me open a couple more of our renderings that we've done in the past. Let's start with our simple red egg. So now what we have to do is understand how to change something from a matte surface to a reflective surface. So what I want to do is, oops, I see what I did there. That was the old. So here it's all in one layer, one group. Okay, so let's go back in to this guy and let's turn off our reflection of the environment, let's turn off my graphic. And I'm going to get all the way back to my matte surface actually. In fact, let's just use this one. All right, and let's turn off this for now. And let's even take the dimple off. Okay, so all the way back to our matte surface. Now you might say, well, it looked like that base paint was just higher contrast, right, when it was metallic. And it was higher contrast because it reflects, those little mirrors reflect all the light. And the little mirrors also reflect, you know, the darker areas of your environment even stronger. So you might have a tendency to think, well, can't we just take our base layer, our matte surface, and just increase the contrast to get a metallic look? And you can start to make it look more metallic because really we only see this kind of strong contrast on shinier metallic surfaces, but the mapping of where the reflection of the light will be totally wrong, because remember, it's a matte surface, so the brightest area of this layer is actually right up here on the very top. Let me make a new layer to write some notes. Right, it's right up here on the very top, because in section view, and it always comes back to sections and direction of light and direction of your line of sight. So the light's coming down and hits perpendicular to the top. So in true matte surface rendering, this is the brightest area, and we're looking from this side, for instance. Actually, let's look from this side so I can draw a little bit longer line. All right, so let's say we're looking this direction. Light's coming down. All right, so when I render the matte surface, I make it the brightest up on top, and then I have the light passing tangent here on the sides, so that's where I put the core shadow. Okay, now if we just make it brighter, all it's doing is increasing contrast, but it's not moving a reflective highlight like that would happen on the mirrors. So what we need to do is, think about the sections, think about where my line of sight is bouncing up to the light source. Okay, now in the case of your homework this week, this is probably the easiest week of homework, I think, because we've already done a lot of tough renderings and we've done them all glossy paint, and our goal is to go back to our renderings and go to the base layer, right? So if you saved your layers, you'll be happy. Go back to your base layer and make it metallic instead of glossy, and we're going to do that on all of our renderings. And maybe we could also shift color if you wanted to. I mean, you can shift color anytime you want, so we'll do a little bit of that as well. So I'm going to do that this week on several of the past renderings I've done for you. So what we have to think about is, where does my line of sight bounce up to the light? And so fortunately, we've already put some effort into that. We've already calculated where that is, and that's the reflection of this overhead skylight. That's where my base paint should be getting brighter, okay? Because that's where the little mirrors will be reflecting up to the light. And what I want to do then is spread it over a larger area than that light box. So I think the easiest way to do that is go to your base layer. Whoops. Okay, select it. Then pick a color dodge brush. I think I gave you color dodging brushes. If not, it's super easy to make one. You just take a airbrush. So in this case, I'll take like a super soft or 50%. Let's start with 50%. And take its opacity down, because the color dodging happens very quickly, you know, somewhere around there, 15, 16%. Switch it over to color dodge, okay? And then what you want to do is you want to dodge it to the color of the light. In this case, it's just bright white, so you could just pick anywhere in here, a brighter red, okay? And if it was a colored light, like say our light source was yellow, for instance, let's try and shift that just a little bit. Let's do, it actually could still be yellow light and look white here, because the temperature change, if it's super bright, could end up being white. But let's just take this, let's darken it just a tick so that I can colorize it. All right, if it's pure white, it's not going to shift towards anything. I'm going to turn up the saturation so I can see it. Okay, so there, it's a little bit of a yellow light now. And we can brighten that back up just a tick. Okay, so I shifted to a little bit yellow. So now I'm going to pick this color in here, and I'm going to shift my base paint to make it look metallic. So all I'm doing is right where it reflects the light source is I want to color dodge that, and this is going to become the brightest area of our base paint. And what I like to do is go just outside the reflection of the light source, because remember, it should stretch beyond the shape it's reflecting on the clear coat, like we saw with those spotlights on the red car photograph that I just showed you. So once you have that done, then you could go even brighter if you want. And you don't want to go so bright though that we lose the reflection edge of the light box. Okay, now that you have that done, now you can go here. You could darken up the top if you want, because really the mirrors will be reflecting that darker area. Or, so you could just pick this and in this case just shift that a little bit darker. Okay, and then if you wanted to, you will see a little bit of contrast increase. So if you want to just bump that a bit and bump this just a little bit, that's kind of how, so that would be glossy, okay, and then that would be metallic. And then we can turn back on our environment. And if you wanted to, you could even erase it a little bit more in here and let that strength of the metallic show up. What I tend to do a lot of times is just turn it down a little bit to let more of the metallic show through. If it's a really high resolution rendering, one last thing you can do, if you look back at those photographs, you'll notice there's a lot of grain in there because you actually can see the metal flakes. So a lot of times you can go in here and go to noise and add noise, and you can actually add, let's do, right, so if I went really extreme I'd get something like that, which doesn't look good at all. But you want to add just a little bit of noise to it. Okay, it'll start to have a little bit of that look of having the metal flake in it. So that's only if you had the resolution, right? If you knew it was going to be seen at very high resolution, then adding a little bit of that helps, makes it look different than the glossy paint. So where this looks more like the red truck that we looked at, okay, this starts to look more like the metallic examples. So that's really all there is to it. That's how you make it metallic. And pretty simple. So I should probably save that one. And let's do another one. So like I said, this is going to be the easier lesson, I think. And I'm going to open up the next. So just go back to your renderings you've done from previous lessons. Locate the reflection of the sun. Go to your base layer. So I'm going to find my base layer here, which is there. Base matte red. I'm going to duplicate that. And we'll call that, change the title there to base let's just go metallic red. Okay, turn on preserve transparency. And I like to usually turn off the sky in this case, because if you're color picking, the sky could influence that. So now what I want to do is I want to stretch that reflection of the sun. So I'm going to start in the most obvious spot, which is here. And then I'm going to start to actually add it elsewhere to intensify the form changes. Okay, so let's go and let's pick, we'll do a color dodge brush that I already have in my tool preset. So if you made your own, you can just save it. And let's pick in there that lighter color, and maybe we'll add a little bit more saturation to it. And we could even warm it up a little bit towards the color of the sun. So I usually like to start right at the sun, okay? And it should be larger than the reflection of the sun. And then this is your chance to show more form. So what it's going to start to do is stretch across the shoulder of that kind of fender shape there, like we saw in our photographs. Okay, And then probably the fillet over here catches a little bit of that. So that I could go in and intensify. I could also probably intensify this guy a little bit. Now what's nice is that I have my layer underneath my base matte. So should I want to erase any of this, I can just erase it here and it will show back through to my original. And then this guy probably catches a little bit through here. And then even this, see right where that little sun is right there, you could actually stretch that right across that shoulder. Nice big soft change. That's probably a little too strong, but it's okay. Just come back and with your airbrush, sorry, with a soft eraser or with a mask, you could do that. Probably going to change. I'm going to do one more so I can merge those two together. So that'll be my original matte surface. This will get re-merged. So let's just go here and let's just back that down a little bit. But it's working to show the form for sure. Because that little hotspot there was there only because there's a cut line there. It's not like my line of sight is really bouncing up enough through here. Okay, now we'll go back to color dodging. And let me grab just a little bit of that little fillet over there and a little bit of this radius. And that's really about it. If we wanted to even get into that little radius there on the cut line, you could even go in and color dodge that if you wanted that radius to show up more. You could even do a little bit of that through here. So it's definitely going to stretch. All of these areas get enhanced. So if I do that, you see that's my base matte, and then that's it. So you want to just bump up that reflection. So in CG terms, that would be called a specular highlight. That's the cheap way to do it if you're doing a CG rendering, is turn up the specularity of your model. And then I turn back on my sky. So in this case, I might turn that down a bit. I also might go back and modify my mask in order to let the reflection of the sun be stronger. So go into those same areas and just take down the strength of the sky a little bit and let the sun win, basically. And you start getting some nice temperature changes to your colors. Okay, so you can see it's really nice temperature changing there from that warm red metallic into the blue of the sky. And that's all there is to it. So I should probably save that one. Okay, let's close that. Oh, we were also going to color change. So here, why don't we do this? Let's take those two and put them together. Let's add a little bit of, this one's pretty decent res. Yeah, it's got plenty of res. Let's add a little bit of noise to it. Get a little speckle into there. A lot of times I'll do monochromatic. It depends on the type of paint and the type of metal flake in it. You can get a lot of that color shifting if you look very closely at metallic surfaces. But a lot of times I find it to be a little too distracting, so I just do monochromatic. And there it adds a little bit of grain. Okay, so there we have our, oops, here's our base matte red. Okay, this dark reddish color. And that was it in our matte. Okay, and here it is in our metallic. Right, and if I went back to the base matte, I might be inclined to turn that sky back on and bump it up a bit. Color shifting, of course, is the same as it was before for this lesson, which is just Command U and shift around your colors. Okay, now one thing that's really fun to do, let's do this. Let's make a copy of our metallic red, and I'm going to call it, let's call it metallic black plus. Now, the plus part is, I'm going to go here to, let's first do, as an experiment, let's take the saturation down to 0. Okay. Now ignore my reflections for now. They're going to stay just the same color as my base paint. I'm not going to reshift those. I just want to show you how you can shift it back and make a new paint out of this. So I've gone back to, so I've started, basically it's grayscale metallic, right? If I turn off the sky, that's what I've got. And what I want to do now is I want to warm up and cool down and change the color based on the values. So what you do is you go to Command B and you bring up color balance. So I know all my value structures right. So what I want to do is say, okay, wherever my reflective highlights, you know what? Let's push the contrast of this a little bit. We didn't do that yet. We didn't bump that up. So let's try pushing and increasing that contrast a tick. Okay, there we go. Get even more of a metallic look. Now I'm going to go to Command B, which is color balance, and we go to my highlights, and I'm going to say I want those to be warm. Okay, so I'm going to warm up my highlights. So all it's doing is looking at like the top third of your value scale and assigning this color shift to that value. And let's see, let's play around. Maybe I want these to go cooler through the midtones, and then I want my shadow to go very blue. Okay, and I'm going to go back to my highlights. I'm going to put even more yellow into it. And I go back to my shadows, put even more blue into it, maybe a little cyan. I'll stay mostly blue. Highlights, don't want those to go warm. Maybe, but you can see what I'm doing is I'm shifting the colors, and I'm actually starting to get different colors associated with different values. So it's kind of an interesting way to do like a pearlescent look to your paint, where wherever it reflects the light, it's one color, and wherever it reflects the environment, it's a different color, or wherever it rolls away from your line of sight. Actually, rolling away from your line of sight is not exactly right, because we're just using values, okay, to change the color. So that's just kind of what you can do that's fun without having to change anything in your painting. So we can go from something like that to something like that, just playing with levels and color balance. Right, and remember, it was completely gray just a minute ago. So, all right, that's turning it from glossy paint to metallic. Now you see why I like metallic, because it's just like a piece of candy. All right, let's save that, and let's close it. Oh, must still be saving. There it goes. All right, let's open up. Let's take this one. This is one of those bonus additional renderings. It's not a super tight rendering, but it does have generally everything in the right spot. So let's just copy that base layer and turn on Preserve Transparency. Grab a color dodge, and let's pick that color of the sun. And all I need to do is start where the sun is. Okay, and this is a nice big shape through. I'm going to actually really intensify this and pull it all the way through this round area. I'm going to stretch it all the way through that shoulder. Okay, look how it comes to life and also starts to show the form more than what we had before. So that's fun to do. So it's really the really simple, easy way to turn on the light, basically, is to just color dodge something. Don't go so bright that you lose the reflection of your sun. I can still see it there. And then I got to go up here and grab that. Let's turn up the strength a little bit. And it's probably all the way up to about that center point, to the highest point. We're going to see that. And then it might even start to wrap down through here, like we saw those fillets catching. Turn down the strength a bit of the light. So right as that fades away into there, we could actually have it catch a little bit of our light. That's maybe a bit strong, but you get the idea. So it has a pretty nice look up here at the front, and maybe a bit strong through that fillet at the back. I could always just erase it and show the one underneath. But so glossy to metallic. And that's all there is. Clear coat's exactly the same. So you don't have to shift anything there. Your reflections of those things, as long as those are the same color, those all stay the same. The environment's the same. None of that changes. But it starts to have a pretty nice feel through here and through there. Starts to have a nice, realistic, shiny, reflective look. So we'll save you that one. So I'm going to upload all the renderings I've already done for you throughout our course, and they'll all be metallic now. Not every single one of the reference ones, but I'm going to do a couple. So let's take this car and let's go here and turn off the reflections. I'm going to duplicate my layer again, and this will be the gloss copy will be my metallic. Okay, so now this is nice because we have a lot of reflections of the sun, so this one there's a little more to do. So let's do that. Go here and color dodge and pick the color of the sun. Okay, and start in the sun. So there's a little shoulder right there. And I want to stretch that until it fades out. It's going to sort of die right into there. Okay, and then these guys have also, this is like that little wing on that silver car that was sticking out in the photograph that we saw. And how it caught, it was reflecting all the light all the way across its shape. Same thing's going to happen there. And here, this shoulder, and this is going to go almost all the way down, but hottest right where the sun is. And then just keep it going, and then bump it up again here. It's a little bit smaller brush because it's a smaller radius. Okay, and then that's going to just fade out and goes, that chrome sits right on top of that, so we're going to see it just a bit, but it's going to fade out a bit. Here we pick up this little lip in the wheel well. This is like that blue car that we saw, the matte finish one. It had a really prominent, right, strong little wheel arch lip on it. So we could do that, start at the sun and just stretch it. Okay, and then here, so this is going to stretch two directions. It's going to stretch across this way, and it's going to stretch this way, okay, for the radiuses. And then the overall thing also has some curvature. So if you want to, you could actually bump that entire front corner a little bit, as that's, right, our line of sight is going to bounce back up to the sun there as well. Okay, and something like that. And last step would be to probably increase its contrast a bit. So Command L for levels, and I'm just going to bump it a little, take the darks down a bit. All right, maybe something like that. And then that's our glossy, just straight matte surface rendering, and now there's our matte metallic. And turn back on our reflections, and there you go. And of course we can do the same sort of color variations we want. We can make it black, silver, whatever we want, and that's, you know, always super fun to do that once you have your value structure set up. Is go back in and play with the colors and see if you want to shift it around and make something different. I realize I have a lot of red in here, but since you can just do that, you guys can make it any value structure you like, or any color you like. Do something neutral, something more metallic. Right, we can go Command B again. We can go to my highlights. Let's make those more yellow. Right, or add some red in there. So you get the idea. Okay, I'll save that for you. And what else do we have left? We've got 2 left. Let's open this one. This one, I think there's a couple, my layers probably aren't as organized as they should be, so we might have to just cheat it a bit. So that'll be a good thing to learn how to do. So this was back from, I think, lesson number 3. This was in our indoor environment. It's the same indoor or outdoor, doesn't matter. I showed you two examples in the photo examples we looked at, and it was the same effect. So in this case, what's happening is because I had my cleanup layer, right, it's not that organized anymore. So you have all this cleanup on a separate layer, so I'd have to try and merge that all back together. It's not as organized as the other renderings that I showed you of the simple shapes. So in this case, I'm going to have to do the color dodging. Let's see, all I really need to see is if my light, my light is at least on a separate layer. So here's what I'm going to need to do. I'm going to have to put a layer on top of, that's all the cleanup. So I really want to be on top of that. Let's see, can this go on top of that? Kind of. I did a little bit of cleanup, it looks like, to my reflection, but not that much. Okay, let's just try it this way. Let's just see if we can have some success. Yeah, let's just go all the way to the very top. Let's make a new layer. I'm going to double click this layer. It's going to open up the layer style menu here. I'm going to turn off transparency shapes layer, and I'm going to turn off blend clipped layers as group. I usually clip on blend interior effects as group, but I don't know that you need to do that when you do this. So you could try it either way, but I usually do it, and it works. I think it works the other way as well. I know Anthony Jones doesn't turn that one on. Christian Scherer showed me how to do this, and he had turned that on, so who knows. So instead of normal, put this on color dodge, and that's going to be the layer style. We'll try it without, do it Anthony's way. It's easier. So color dodge, and sitting on top. Now the thing you're not going to get when you do it this way is you're not going to get the clipping path cleaning up your edges. So normally I would just turn on preserve transparency on my base paint, right, which would be here. I'd turn on this little guy, and then it would keep me from color dodging outside the silhouette. In this case, I'm not going to have that because I'm on my own layer. So you could try to load that layer below as a selection, right? You could try loading this as a selection. Okay, and then making that a layer mask if you wanted. So we could come back up to here, and I should be able to just click the layer mask button, and now I have a mask, and that should only allow me to paint. Let's have it do a test. And here we go. Yeah, so it's only allowing me to color dodge inside that layer. So that helps us a little bit. Sorry, I'm just going to try and undo that. There we go. All right, so I'll keep that layer mask on. It'll help a little bit. We might have a little cleanup to do down in here, but that's okay. So what we want to do, wherever our overhead big, skylight or light box above this thing is reflecting, we want to go in and we want to color dodge it. And you can see I already did actually a little bit of that right in here. When I was rendering this thing to bring it to life a bit, because that's my tendency, is to do things metallic more than glossy paint. You can see that it already has a little bit of that glow, so we don't have as far to go with this one, so it's already been cheated a little bit. Okay, so now when you have a color dodge layer, you don't need your brush to also be color dodged. You can just use a normal airbrush. Okay, because the layer effect is what's making it color dodge, not the brush mode setting. So again, it goes pretty fast, so I don't really want to use a 50%. I'd probably like to use this Super Soft 20. All right, and let's see if globally, right, meaning the big surfaces, probably right through the middle here and definitely towards the top, we could catch a little bit. So I'm going to maybe start with a airbrush set very large. Okay, I'm going to pick the color of my light. Okay, just a little warm white, and maybe I'll start large here and say, okay, well, this is going to get a little bit brighter in general. Okay, and then through here a little bit brighter. This also a little bit brighter, and then that for sure. Okay, so those are like the big soft areas, maybe right here as well. and through here, of course. Okay, now I want to go in and get a little bit smaller with it, with my brush. And let's start to bump up. So now what I can't do here is that the edge I'm color dodging is actually all on the one layer. So unfortunately, I can't keep control, because I don't have my layers organized properly, of my reflection of the light box independent of the metallic paint. So I'm going to be brightening both of them at the same time. So I'm kind of painting a little bit outside the reflection of the light box, because I don't really want to make my clear coat that much stronger. So I'm kind of going just outside it to push the metallic feel and trying not to brighten up my light box too much. And keep in mind, it's going to stretch like all your little radiuses, all your fillets will probably catch a little bit. So you can really get in there. Let's say if there was a little fillet through here that wasn't, maybe I probably should have a little reflection of this light box there, but if you want to make that fillet show up stronger, and this is a good way to do it. I can push this even. So you'll see, because I have my layers, I was a little sloppy doing this one, didn't take the time to organize it properly. My light box is also getting stronger. So it's kind of like I'm amplifying the clear coat and the base paint at the same time. So it's just what I'm going to have to live with, because my layer isn't that organized. But it's alright, it still works. Especially works for this lesson because I already have the others that are more organized. So this isn't my only example for this lesson. Take that fillet and stretch that down into there. If you wanted to come back and grab that little radius on that cut line, you could bump that up. So you can see, you just keep on bumping those. If this was metallic instead of this sort of white or gray, you can start to go in and dodge those areas. And you see I had quite a bit left in the values of this guy to go back and dodge. It's not like I made it overly bright the first time around, which is nice. And you could, if you wanted to, even push this. If you wanted to show the form through there, you could cheat that fillet a little bit. Let it catch a little bit of light. And I say cheat it because we're not showing, there's not a reflection of the light box there. So it kind of stops there because this is probably blocking the view of the light box. But you could definitely cheat that if you want to show the form through there a little bit more. You want to show that curve more. Basically, wherever you want to show more form, okay, you do this, because that'll probably, when you do a value change, our brain sees a form change. I think I said that right. So yeah, shifting value means form change to our brains. So it's a good way to do it. Whenever you need to show more form, just tweak the value shift. You can see sometimes it lands right where it does with the matte surface, but like when we talked about the red egg when we got started, sometimes it's in an entirely different spot. So sometimes it's, coincident that coincidentally it lands where the matte surface is, but a lot of times it can be in a very different spot. And what about here? All right, maybe that's metallic. So if this wants to be metallic paint, even though we don't have much clear coat on it, but just pushing. This is like the simple, cheap way to make something look shiny. It's just color dodge the reflection of the light. It's the simplest thing you can do. Not always the most accurate for your material, but to the general public, it will look like it's metallic, or it'll look like it's shiny if you add a sort of a spectral highlight, like you're turning up the specularity of your surface. All right, I didn't bother making all the new layers there, but it's on its own separate layers, so we can turn it on and off. So there it was before. Okay, glossy surface, glossy paint. Still looks reflective, still looks shiny. And then here it is with when a little color dodge layer is brought in for the metallic effect. The thing I can't do here, of course, I can't take the paint only and change the contrast. But I already did it with the levels here. And that's why it was glowing before, because remember we did that to bump it up a bit. So that's what it would be if it was just glossy paint, and here it is metallic, and then here I'd bumped it up with a little bit of a levels adjustment through the middle. So it already had that little metallic kind of glow. But still, pretty significant change. Enough to be interesting. This one, if I wanted to start shifting colors and things, I don't have much option here. I would do probably Command A to select everything, Command Shift C, Command Shift V, and that does a copy merged. It looks at everything below my rendering, below that layer I should say, and takes a snapshot of it and then pastes it onto a new layer. So now I can go here and I can just globally play around with my colors. Sorry, I was shifting there, but it wasn't updating. So, and you know what's going to happen is my background's going to go with it. So it's not like I can change the two independently. But in a way that's good because the background's going to reflect in. The shifts will all be correct. So I could lower the saturation. Do something like that. All right, and then we can take and play with our levels. Something like that. So you can still go and tweak this stuff. Okay, I'll save that one for you. And we've got one to go. Okay, so this is the one from lesson 5. And I believe my colors and my layers are a little more organized. Yeah. So we do the same thing to this one. And then you guys will be turn you loose to go back to yours and do the same. And then why don't we take you know 3 of your favorite that you've rendered so far and go back and turn them into metallic. So that'll be your homework. You can see it's pretty fast to do. Like I said, this will be probably your easiest week. But doing a good metallic, right, can take a little time to spend, especially depending how complex your form is. All right, so let's go back to our base layer on this one, which is there. And this was that one that was pretty painterly and scruffy. We still see a lot of the line drawing. But let's still go make it metallic. Okay, go to that guy. Let's copy it. Gives me some freedom to do other things with it. All right, in case I screw it up. So let's do color dodge. So color dodge 12%. Let's pick our sort of mix of our base paint, and I've already cheated it there a little bit. So let's go back in and really make that even stronger. Those are really just the edges catching. I shouldn't be stretching it too far up that nose. There we go, catch the cut lines. And let's stretch it all the way down into here. So this is that one, like I said, I have a hard time not doing metallic because I just enjoy seeing that form change some more than you do with glossy paint. So let's grab this little radius on the leading edge of that wing. I'm stretching it out of that sun right there, back towards the fuselage. And this one's basically all in shadow, so we're not going to do that. That's like the car where we saw the cast shadow on the shoulder of the car. So it's really where we just where our line of sight bounces back up to the light. This little radius here probably should be nice and bright. And that might be about it for this one. There's not that much. Yeah, and let's go here and do Command L. Let's increase the contrast a bit. It's hard to increase it much without losing too much detail in there. So let's just do that. Let's turn back on the reflection of the sky and the reflection of the ground. I'm not sure which one I was using here. Maybe that one. That's definitely shinier. And which one was that? That's 38%. That's 100. All right. That's about it. If you really wanted to go back in and modify your mask, you could paint this part a little bit out. So let's go back to our mask. Let's do airbrush, and let's make it more see-through right through here, increasing that Fresnel effect, but also letting the light win. So letting that reflection of the sun be stronger than the reflection of the sky due to the metal flake. So I'm just trying to go back to every place I sort of touched it for increasing that strength of the metallic look, and I'm just modifying my mask and making it more about the metal flake base paint and less about the reflection of the sky. That works. And if it's still too strong, then you can just knock back your opacity a bit. But I like that strong Fresnel effect, and ground, don't have to worry about that because that's reflecting down to the ground. All right, so that's about it. Let me, I'm going to just shift the color for you so you can, so it'll look like a different file. Actually, you know what? Let's do this. And to make this paint a little bit more interesting, let's see. First I have to find those other little reflections. Those guys, yeah, those guys right there. That's what I want. The reason I want that is I want to go here and I want to colorize that. So I'm just going to dupe those so I have that, and then I'm going to do Option Command U so those shift. But it also shifts the blue of my sky. So remember, we can't do that. We have to go back in here. Instead of doing the sky part, we just want to shift the red towards the orange. So I'm just going to go back here and pick this color, and I'm going to do a color shifting brush. Color shift 50%. So I'm just going to shift that away from the red towards the orange. Okay, that's close enough. And what I want to do to my base paint is Command B, and I just want to play with shifting around the color a little. Maybe go more yellow in the highlights, and midtones a little more red, and shadows a little more red, and maybe throw a little bit of blue in there as well. So you can start to see I'm getting a large temperature change now through my base paint. Okay, and that's how to get a lot of interest and shift to a paint that would be very difficult to paint from scratch with all those colors. It would take a lot of time to step and layer through all of that. So definitely use Photoshop image controls. I should probably tighten this thing up just a little bit while I'm here. Let me just throw a new layer on top. Just now that I look back at it, Did this one a little while ago. Let's see. Let's just grab an airbrush. I just want to tighten up these guys a little bit. These things are supposed to be, holes, and maybe there's some matte black material in there. They're just a little unfinished, so I'm just going to darken up a few of those little areas so they're a little more interesting. Yeah, stuff like that. All right, I will save it in that color so you can know that it's a different version.